Hello, everyone. As Patrick said, I am Gabrielle, and I have been studying cacao for actually it's almost 2 years now, which is crazy. Um, we most recently met on a trip where I went to Guatemala to learn about cacao and the Mayan traditions and the Mayan cosmovision around cacao. But what we'll be talking about today specifically is cacao and coffee and how to choose which tool to enhance your day. So, or to better kind of like manifest the type of day you want to have. So, I'm going to teach you about like the health benefits of each, the spiritual benefits of each, and the history of both, which is really interesting because you need to know that when you're sourcing both your coffee and cacao. So, can you guys see my presentation screen?
We can.
Yeah? Okay, perfect. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is plant medicine and how it's kind of hidden in plain sight. And what I mean by that is that there are so many things out there, like coffee, for example, that we see every single day, but that everybody is pretty unaware of the spiritual and health benefits of it. Coffee is just one example. Cacao is another example, and the form that you know cacao and best is modern day chocolate, which we'll go through what the difference actually is between cacao and chocolate. Other things are like tobacco or chamomile. I'm sure you guys have heard of magic mushrooms or poppies. There's literally thousands, if not tens of thousands, of these different medicinal plants that have pretty amazing health benefits and spiritual benefits that are just everywhere. They're just in the world, and we pass by them every single day, and we don't even think twice about it. So I want to point these out to you and teach you a little bit about two of them specifically, so that way you can really understand how amazing they are and how to use them when you need them. So the first thing I want to talk about is coffee. I recently did a trip to Medellin, Colombia, and toured an organic coffee farm that was really, really interesting. Obviously, grown up my whole life surrounded by coffee, so have you. Coffee has a really funny history, actually. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the legend of Kaldi. But there's this legend from Ethiopia where there was a shepherd who was walking his goats through the forest, and his goats started eating these little red berries, and they started acting really strange. And so he decided to take these little red berries and try to eat them himself. And apparently, he felt the same energy that the goats did. And so he showed them to a monk, and the monk was like, "This is blasphemy," and threw them in the fire. And that's where we first got our roasted coffee from. This is from a very long time ago. This legend is from 700 AD. But since then, the people of Ethiopia have actually been using coffee for ceremonial purposes, which is not what you think of when you think of coffee. But what they do is they use it as a way for people to sit down and convene, communicate, hold ceremony where, or more like ritual, where they sit down and pour the coffee and connect with each other. And fun fact is that the word mocha actually comes from a port in Yemen that was a huge coffee port back in like the 15th century. But I wanted to share this with you to show you that coffee actually does have ritualistic and ceremonial aspects of it since it was discovered. And the interesting thing about coffee and cacao is that these superfoods, plant medicines, beverages. Once the humans discovered them, they basically swept the world. There were like crazes around them, which I think is really interesting because it just goes to show like the innate understanding of how powerful these are. The fact that like we would become so obsessed with them. Like, even today, there's a huge coffee culture, a new even emergence of obsession with coffee with like the hipsters wanting to have all their different like pour over, drip over, or single origin coffee, things like that. And I don't think it's by any coincidence that we are obsessed with these two beverages in particular because they are really powerful as far as the health benefits and the energetic benefits. But going a little bit more back into coffee, let me just pull up this 1 second. Okay. The coffee has a dark history. And I think this is also very similar with cacao. And I think that this is a sad reality of what has happened when we find really powerful things. Coffee being one of them. So coffee, as I'm sure you know, is really involved in slave labor. Like this is a Haitian coffee farm that they use slave labor for. They've used slave labor for coffee all over the world. This is Caldi and his goats and the red berries, which is really interesting. This is a Turkish coffee house. So once the Europeans started being introduced to coffee, it was actually through people from the Middle East. And they had traveled to areas like Turkey and Ethiopia and Egypt and the Arabic Peninsula, and started to see how these people were using coffees in these houses where people would come together and then discuss really important matters like politics or the future of their community or make decisions. So this drink was being used in like a ritualistic sense of like discussions and things like that. And this is also a coffee house from London. This is all just some visuals to give you an idea of the history. Now, diving into the scientific health benefits. So, a lot of people wonder, is coffee good for me or is coffee bad for me? And the more that I've been studying coffee, and actually, when I was talking to the farmers in Colombia, the general consensus is that the scientific research that shows that it could be bad for you actually has nothing to do with the coffee bean itself. It has to do with the roasting process. So that's an interesting fact. If you're like concerned if coffee is has health benefits for you or not, I would look into staying away from dark roasts. That's what they were telling me, is that the dark roasts are the ones that have this chemical reaction that could cause issues in the body. But otherwise, if you look at the chemical compounds and the nutrients makeup of coffee beans, there are so many things in it that are really good for you. The difference is that us as a society have kind of lost respect for the coffee bean and the way that it's sourced and the way that it's processed and the chemicals like preservatives and herbicides, pesticides that are used on the beans are what make it extremely unhealthy. So it all has to do with where you source it from. But if you look at the coffee bean on its own, it has so many benefits for you. It has niacin and B2, which are super good for your brain, helps improve mental clarity and removes brain fog. You have magnesium and potassium. You have tons of antioxidants. You actually have these really cool chemicals that repair the DNA and cells in the body. They're anti-inflammatory. Science actually doesn't even fully understand all the benefits of caffeine. But of course, with any plant medicine, there needs to be a level of respect, because too much can be too much. And that is obviously the case with coffee, because if you have too much, you can have heart palpitations, you can have anxiety, things like that. And actually, what I found, we'll dive deeper into the spiritual side of coffee, is that people who are already overly dominant in their masculine energy tend to have anxiety when they drink coffee because they already have too much of that energy in their body. So now let me give you a brief history of cacao. So cacao actually comes from the Central America and South America. It's been in that part of the world for thousands and thousands of years, but the first documented use of cacao was actually by the Olmecs, 2000 BC. So an extremely long time ago. Since then, a lot of the tribes in the area have used cacao for ritualistic and ceremony practices. The Mayans being the ones who used it the most and still use it to this day. And when Cortez came over and started conquering Central America, one thing that he found was that these people were using cacao like money. That's how high, like in high regard that the cacao bean was. They even called it black gold. And so this is really interesting because that's when the cacao was first brought to Europe and how modern day chocolate was then created. So let's see here. Yes, so I would like to go through the differences between cacao and chocolate. So, what you know today as chocolate, so there's actually three different types of cacao trees. And that's a really big difference between cacao and modern day chocolate is the type of cacao tree that the beans are produced from. So originally they're called criollo trees, and these are like the what they think of as the like most true, raw, authentic tree that has the most theobromine in it. And I'll go into what theobromine is. But there's the most theobromine in the beans. Since then, when cacao and chocolate boomed all over Europe, they wanted a way to mass produce these cacao beans. And the criollo tree is very, very particular. She likes to live in a specific place. She doesn't necessarily grow easily. And so scientists started trying to find a different variety of this tree or create a different variety of this tree that was easier to grow, didn't die as easily, didn't consume as much water, and produced more beans. So, in that, they created the Forastero tree. And or they found the Forastero tree, and then that's the one that they started planting all over the world. So that's the one that's planted in Africa. That's the one that's planted in Indonesia, mostly. And those are the ones that are the producers of the beans that create chocolate. Also, of course, it's the same thing as coffee. And these two drinks histories are extremely similar, which is just part of the interesting part about their like symbiotic relationship. And they use herbicides, pesticides, and all sorts of chemicals on these trees, of course, just like they do in any mass produced plant or crop across the world. And that's also a huge difference. Also, the intentions behind the harvesting and preparation of cacao versus chocolate is a huge difference. So, when you buy cacao, for example, from Lava Love Cacao, which is who you see here, this is who I did my training with in Guatemala. These are indigenous people of Mayan descent who are teaching about cacao, and it's been in their family for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And they actually grow their own trees and they don't use any chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, anything like that. They harvest the beans, they roast the beans themselves. They're very, very lightly roasted. And so the entire process is something that you can feel really good about putting into your body because they're pouring prayers and intentions and love into this whole process. Another big difference between cacao and chocolate is this roasting process. So when you are buying chocolate in the store, those beans have been roasted into oblivion. Like pretty much everything in the bean is dead, more or less. All the living enzymes, all these things that are really good for your gut and your body. Actually, I'll show you the scientific health benefits of cacao. There are so many, but some of them die when they're over roasted. So that's a really key, like fundamental part of the difference between cacao and chocolate is just the temperatures that they're roasted at, the quality of the beans, how they're, which trees they're from, how they're collected, and how it's processed. Um, and if we go into the health benefits of cacao, you'll see here there are a lot. And it's by no coincidence either that one, cacao is linked to women before they have their periods. And this is actually because there are a lot of properties in true, real, raw cacao and when you make cacao that are super helpful for PMS symptoms. And it's also really helpful for when a woman is bleeding, she's losing obviously the blood. And so the iron, the zinc, the magnesium are all things that her body will be craving. So it's not some like made up marketing tool to have women like eat chocolate when they're on their period or before their period. It actually like our bodies are calling for these nutrients and this plant provides them, which is so funny. And another common association of chocolate is with Valentine's Day and with love. And that's also not on accident either. And it's also, I mean, maybe it's been drastically embellished and enhanced with marketing and consumerism, but it comes from a true source, and that is the theobromine. So this is one of the most amazing parts about cacao is there is this little chemical inside the cacao that the scientist who discovered it, he named theobromine, which means food of the gods. So he was so impressed by this plant and this bean, and also how the Mayan people and the people of Central America were using this superfood to open their heart. So they were explaining to him that it opens your heart, and he started looking into the scientifics to back that up, and it actually literally does. There are chemicals in here that open up the capillaries and the blood vessels in the body, and it basically creates more space for your blood to move around. It's why when you drink cacao, you can get the tingling sensation in your hands, and you literally feel like your heart is more open, and it's because the blood circulation is being enhanced. And there's a few other like chemical terms behind this. If you're into the sciencey part, I can send you a research paper that goes into all the specifics of this. But it does really open up your heart space, and that's really really powerful in a spiritual sense, which we'll go into, of connecting with people and connecting yourself. It's why when people think about cacao, they think about heart wisdom or heart centered decisions or connections and things like that. There's also antioxidants in cacao. There's more antioxidants in cacao than blueberries. There's more calcium in cacao than in milk. There's the serotonin and tryptophan, which actually are mood enhancers and feel good hormones. That's why cacao is also sometimes known as like a hug in a mug, because you literally can feel like happier or like more cozy and supported or loved. You can feel that sensation of bliss. It's really good for manifesting because you can get yourself into this like really happy, like high vibe state. It's great for creation. We'll go into all that, but these are the scientific health benefits of cacao. I also feel like I can't talk about cacao without talking about its history, because just like coffee, it does have a very turbulent past. And there's a lot of talk around, um, oh no, I just forgot the term. Um, Cultural appropriation when it comes to cacao as well. And this is because the Mayans have experienced a lot of hardship since being conquered by the Spanish, and then having Spanish people basically managing their country, and then having a lot of internal racism around the indigenous groups. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but there was actually a big civil war and a massacre on the Mayan and indigenous people in Guatemala in the 1980s. And the Mayans are the ones who have preserved this knowledge, and they're the ones passing on this knowledge. And so it was really, really powerful for me to go and learn from them. And my teacher, Isaias, he asked me to hold sessions like this and to share with the world the power of cacao, because their lineage has been keeping this sacred knowledge for a reason. And it's all the reasons that I showed you. It's a superfood. It's amazing for your body, but it's also spiritually super powerful and really amazing for creating the energy of your day. So it's almost like paying tribute to the people who have kept this information so safe and passed it on from generation to generation. But it's actually so cool. If you go to Central America, you can go to Chichen Itza. I'm not sure if you've heard of that amazing temple that's in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, but there's actually a pillar where they carve the cacao tree into the stone. Like that's how sacred this tree is. That's how important this tree is. They would use it for rituals. They would use it for ceremonies. They would use it for offerings for their gods. When they would sit down and make important decisions as a tribe and as a community, they would drink cacao so they could connect with each other. Not only the Mayans use cacao, pretty much all the tribes in the area, even tribes in northern Brazil have used cacao. So when people come across this beverage, they recognize the power of it. And of course, when it spread like wildfire to Europe, just like coffee did, people became utterly obsessed with it because it is so delicious, but it makes you happy and it makes you feel good. It makes your heart sing. And these are all like true aspects of this drink. So I'll go into how to source coffee and cacao and some places that I recommend sourcing it from. But I want to dive into this really interesting kind of yin and yang energy of coffee and cacao. So these trees are alarmingly similar. Like it's so funny that people don't talk about the yin and yang energy of these before this. I've never heard anybody talk about it, but since I've been studying it, since I've been speaking to my teachers, it's like so obvious, but it's so wild. So these two trees are both grown in the same areas. You can see that the beans grow along the stems, which is the fruit grows along the stems, which is really unique. You know, a lot of other trees like peaches, like and apples, the fruit kind of grows off, has its own little stem and grows off, where these ones are like connected directly. So that's kind of an odd similarity. You can also see the beans are very similar. The leaves on the plants are very similar, but their energies are like exact opposites of each other. They're basically like yin and yang energies. And this is so cool because if you are trying to set an intention for your day, you can choose, do I want to have coffee this morning or do I want to have cacao this morning? Which one is going to better support me in my day? So coffee is really powerful. I think we already intuitively know this, that it's really powerful for linear thought, like left brain focus, like analytical, methodical, literal thought, solution oriented, detail oriented. It's also very good for communication because it clears brain fog. You can say what you mean. You can have a lot of focus. And that's why it's so prominent in our Western style of working. You know, we need to get things done. We need to get things done quickly. Sometimes people are tired and they're kind of running on fumes. That's when it's out of balance. And they're not using the plant thoughtfully because they're not listening to their body. But, you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But when you're thinking if I want to have coffee in the morning, you can think about, okay, what am I going to be doing today? Maybe in your job, you're going to be working on a lot of spreadsheets. You're going to be going through data, and maybe you even need to start filling out the information for your taxes. Well, that would be a perfect day for you to drink coffee because that's perfectly aligned with the energy of coffee and what it helps you do focus wise and what literally the chemicals inside of the coffee bean help you do with your brain, how they react with your cells, everything. Also, on an even deeper spiritual level, it helps cultivate like the divine masculine energy. So, these are all descriptions of the divine masculine energy to some degree, especially related to business. And if you are a woman, trying to cultivate more of her divine masculine energy. Maybe you want to have some rituals with yourself with coffee, actually, not cacao. Or if you're a man trying to cultivate your feminine energy, your flow, your creative, things like that, maybe you want to have rituals with yourself, journaling sessions with yourself where you drink cacao. So that's on like a deeper, more spiritual level. But as far as going back to kind of like more business focused, if you wake up in the morning and you look at what you have to do that day and you realize that you need to make a presentation, you need to create some social media content, you need to maybe do some graphic design work, you want to play the piano, you want to do anything philosophical, if you want to have a business meeting where you guys are talking about like the strategic future of the business and you're trying to get very creative, very out of the box thinking, very expansive, then you're going to want to drink cacao because cacao brings you into that space of the yin energy, of the divine feminine, of these things where it really supports that type of work. So, for example, when I was creating this presentation, I was drinking cacao because it's very visual. I'm thinking about how I want to make you guys understand things, how I want to make you feel things, how I want to relate concepts. It's very like cyclical, like connecting the dots of all these different things. And plus I love cacao. So yeah, so that's what I would choose on a day where I'm focusing on these types of things. So you can take a screenshot of this slide if you think it would be helpful for you. I also want to share a more personal story is that I have been working on, like, I've been going on a healing journey where I've been working through, like, stuff from my childhood and stuff like that. And a lot of mine has been, like, reconnecting to my feminine and reconnecting to, like, feelings and just, yeah, working through, like, emotional stuff. And cacao has been instrumental to helping me connect back with that. I don't know how much you guys know about like trauma and healing and things like this, but it's very common where you disconnect with your feelings because it's way easier to just kind of like go through life or get through the day or whatever when you kind of numb out. And so cacao has really helped me reconnect with all my feelings, my intuition, yeah, my body in that way. And so I just want to throw that out there in case that resonates with you at all, because it's been a huge, huge tool for me in that sense. So yeah, so the dynamic duo here, the perfect yin and yang of each other is coffee and cacao. So you can be really intentional about what you're trying to do in your day and which drink to choose. Um, so I want to share some recipes with you guys, which if you want to just DM me on Instagram, I can send you this, or if you want to take a screenshot shot of it now. These are two of my favorite recipes. I actually have cacao right here that I'm drinking this morning as well. One I call cozy and one I call fiery. So the thing to know about when you're preparing cacao is that there's a few ways to have cacao, but most people drink it. It's in the form of a drink. And a ceremonial dose of cacao is 2 ounces. So if you're going to be drinking cacao in the morning before you start your day, if you kind of have your own little ritual, and I don't mean ritual like it has to be something crazy. In fact, I'll go into rituals in a minute. But if you're having your little start your day ritual and you know that you want to work on some creative projects today and you're like, okay, I want to have some cacao, I would start with a 1 ounce of cacao, or maybe even a little bit less, and just drink it, and as you're going feel your body and be like, okay, that feels like enough, because she will tell you, like, you'll feel it in your stomach and you'll be like, okay, I don't want any more, and don't drink anymore. Just listen to your body. Because yeah, every day it'll be different. Some days you might want buckets of cacao, and other days you might want 3 sips, and that's enough for you. So I highly, highly recommend just listening to your body. And when you're preparing your cacao, what you do is you chop it up. So you put a pot on the stove, or you can have one of those water heater, like electric water heaters. Heat up your water or your milk. In these recipes, I have one where you heat up coconut cream and makes it very thick. It's so cozy. This is like the perfect drink to have when you want to spend the day maybe journaling or riding by the fire. Maybe it's cold outside. I just imagine myself like sitting in my house when it's raining and I have the fire lit and I'm like writing, or I'm creating something, or I'm painting, or things like that. And then this one over here is a lot more like fiery energy. So this one is actually made with water, but you can get creative. You can start playing around. I make cacao with almond milk, coconut milk, oat milk. There you can experiment. But going back to the direction, so you chop up the cacao. You have your liquid boiling, then you take it off the flame because you don't want to cook the cacao at too high of a heat. Like I said before, one of the differences between chocolate and cacao is the roasting process, but also the preparation process. So when you're preparing your cacao, you don't want to burn it. And I don't mean burn it in the sense like it tastes burnt. I mean burn it in the sense like you're killing the vital nutrients inside the cacao. So when you boil the water, you want to take it off the flame, let it rest for a minute or two. Then you want to add in your chopped up cacao and use a whisk and mix it in there. And you can also add different spices. Like I will add in cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, honey. This one I add in vanilla, cinnamon, cardamom is an amazing spice. You can be really intentional with the spices that you add. I don't know if you guys have heard about Ayurveda, but you can look up the different health benefits of the spices, also the different energetic benefits of the spices. For example, cinnamon is very fiery. It is helps like turn on your life force, like gives you energy, makes you feel warm inside. This can be helpful when you're working on projects and things, when you're trying to create, when you're trying to do something. Um, you can be really intentional about the herbs that you add. The traditional Mayan recipe has cardamom in it, and it also has another spice in it that is actually very hard to find, but it's red. It's like a reddish orange color, and I can tell you the name of it. And they add that actually as like a tribute to the Mayans because it's called a chote. You can see here, I don't know if you can see that in my notes, this like orangey color. And they use it because it has health benefits as well. But it's also because the Mayans would use that to face paint. And so it's kind of a tribute to the Mayan culture as well. It's also found all over Guatemala in these pods. So it's a native herb to that area. It's very, very cool. But going back to the preparation of the cacao, so then you're whisking everything together. And cacao, like any plant medicine, it's very powerful for you to put your intentions into it. So to say, Mama Cacao, can you help me with this? Can you bring out this in my body? Can you bring out this in my life today? I would like to feel focused. I would like to feel inspired. I would like to feel connection with my heart and understand why I'm feeling so sad. I would like whatever it is that you would like. Intention is very powerful and a very important part of the process of the sacred part of drinking cacao. And it's part of the traditional Mayan rituals and the traditional rituals of the people who have been using this drink. So, oh, now going into the ritual side, I don't want you to feel like overwhelmed or like turned off by the idea of like, oh, I need to have a ritual to drink cacao because a ritual can be anything. A ritual is any time that you set an intention for a specific series of actions. So, let's say in the morning you always get up, you make your coffee, you sit down at your dining room table, you look outside, maybe you open up the window, get some fresh air, you sit down on your phone, maybe read Reddit or Twitter or the news for the day, maybe you sit down and journal, maybe you sit down and call your mom, like whatever it is that you do in the morning, that is a ritual. So by adding some intention behind it, you can actually make it really powerful to set the like an energy and intention of your day. So you can use that time to think about, okay, what do I want to do today? Like, what would at the end of the day, if I look back on this day and I completed X, Y, and Z, I would be happy. What is X, Y, and Z? Okay, what would support me in getting these things done? Would it be cacao? Would it be coffee? Um, or any other beverage for that matter. Would it be orange juice? No. um, and that is a ritual. So, and you can use this time for self reflection. You can use this time to slow down. I find that it's really, really powerful to add other tools to your practice too, meditation, silence, stillness, being alone, journaling. Use this as a time for gratitude, for raising your like energy for the day, for getting excited, for feeling happy, for, like attracts like. So if you raise your energy into this like state of happiness, odds are you're going to have a pretty good day. You can also combine your cacao with some like small movements, some stretching, some embodiment practices. Also, one of my teachers, she drinks cacao in the morning when she does her prayers and offerings. I'm in Bali right now, and they have a really beautiful practice with gratitude and then giving back, like offerings every morning. You can combine like cacao with a walk outside, standing outside in your front yard as maybe you water the flowers, to stand out barefoot in your grass as you're drinking your cacao, um, being standing in the sunshine. Like all these things can be really helpful in setting the mood or the vibe or the energy for your day and reflecting with yourself and tapping into that like heart-centered wisdom. So these are the rituals that I'm talking about. It doesn't necessarily have to be you sitting down and having like a fire and a drum circle and all these kind of like intense things. When people think about rituals, which those are amazing too, I highly recommend, highly, highly recommend. But you don't have to do that every single day, and you can still have a ritual with yourself every single day. You can just make it more personal. Like this is like adding the magic back into your day, adding the intention, adding the wonder, is connecting with these energies, and they're there for you. Like they're so powerful. So that's a little bit on rituals. And then I wanted to share a little bit more about um, thoughts behind this. So I know that cultural appropriation can be a big thing around cacao. I know that people want to be respectful of ancient wisdoms and traditions when it comes to things like cacao, when it comes to things like rituals in general. And I come before you to share with you that these traditions are for all of us. These are for humankind. And the minds have been holding this wisdom, but they're holding this wisdom to share it with us. And there's a legend actually about cacao specifically, that Ish Cacao, which means goddess cacao, the mother of cacao, she will come out of the jungle and reintroduce herself to the world when humanity needs it most, when it's the most disconnected from nature and the most disconnected from themselves. And it's very funny that cacao is making this huge resurgence, like back into our world at this time when we are so disconnected from nature and so disconnected from ourselves. So it's by no mistake that you're coming across this drink. I'm sure this drink will really, really help you, if not just be more creative in your work, to all the way to reconnecting with yourself, your emotions, your heart wisdom, connecting yourself with your family, your children, your significant partner. These are really, really powerful tools in plant medicines, but they're so accessible and they're so simple, which it will help in having people use them every day or intentionally. And so I just want to share that because that's what my mind teachers have taught me, and that's what I believe from the bottom of my heart is that you are welcome to use these. You are encouraged. They're begging you to use these to experience the magic of this medicine. Um, and when you're performing rituals, to follow your heart and your intuition, because what you know what you need. So if you feel like that day you need to go sit outside and put your feet in your pool and lay down with your face in the sun and drink cacao, that's exactly what you need to do for your ritual. Or if you feel like you need to dance around your house blasting some music, maybe that's what you need to do. Like just follow your intuition. Like you have complete freedom when it comes to your rituals and how you generate this energy. And then when it comes to being respectful of the ancient wisdom and traditions and plant medicine, I think what you're doing by watching this workshop is showing profound respect for understanding where it comes from, what it means to the minds, what it means to the people of Central America, how it's used, how to work with it, where to source it from is huge. So those are all steps that you're taking to be really respectful to the traditions and the people who have been passing down this knowledge. I put some things here about what I have learned about cacao and about the spiritual process of cacao. One thing I would like to say that I haven't talked about already is that it is a good idea to cleanse your space. Just cleansing your space every now and then. But the indigenous cultures of the Americas have the practice of smudging, the people of the Eastern Hemisphere also have their own way of using smoke to cleanse areas. It's like a very ancient wisdom that's been passed down, passed down. Even the Catholic Church actually got their um, those like egg-shaped baskets that the person holds and he swings it and all the incense and smoke come out of it when he's walking through the church. That's actually from Central America originally with their incensarios using the smoke of the burning palo santo, sage, rosemary, frankincense, copal, to cleanse the space. So I do recommend doing that. I also, something that's very, very important to the Mayan people and to a lot of indigenous cultures around the world is the understanding of cycles and giving back. So you never want to throw your cacao away in the trash, like ever. So if you make cacao and you have extras, go outside and pour it back into Mother Earth as an offering or as a giving back or completing the cycle. You can pour it into your plants. You can pour it, just make sure if you pour it outside to cover it up with some dirt because it can kill dogs. And you don't want your neighborhood dog to come by and lick the cacao and get sick. But other than that, it's been used in offerings for thousands of years. It's thought of as being very, very sacred. And so, yes, when you have extra cacao, use it as a way to give back. And they're also believe that in nature, we're always being shown the cycles. So we're always being shown how there's life and then death. There's spring, summer, fall, and then winter. There's in a woman's body like the menstruation cycle, our own lives, obviously. Everything has a cyclical nature. There's the growing of the seed and then the decaying of the tree and it going back into earth. And so this is super important when we're talking about like the cycles of energy. So if you're taking the cacao, drinking the cacao, getting the benefits of the cacao and enhancing like your life and your world, it's important to then go and kind of complete the cycle by giving back. Also on the topic of something I learned from the Mayans is like the nahuales, which are the sacred energies of the humans that's in the Mayan cosmovision that I can talk about on another workshop. But it's really important in that in those teachings of the cycles and the giving backs and the offerings. And like I said, the offerings can be the cacao that you're not going to drink. It can be even taking cacao seeds and putting them in the dirt in your front yard. It can be going to the beach and offering flowers to the ocean. It can be whatever you feel called to do, but I just recommend doing it. You'll feel it. You'll feel a difference. Let's see. Yeah, that's what I want to share today. I want to check back in and see what kind of questions you guys have.
I like that a lot where you're the intention and making sure you give it back to Mother Earth. I didn't really think about that, and it's definitely important. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very powerful.
for sure.
Yeah, for me, you took me back to my childhood with the whole coffee thing because I'm from Syria, so we drank coffee, then we read each other's cups, and so
Cool.
coffee is just important in our culture too.
Yeah. Yeah, very important. Yeah, I was reading about the coffee in Syria and a lot of countries in that area and how there were it was thought to be like wisdom, like it was wisdom in a cup. And so people would drink it when they wanted to tap into like their intellect and have like important conversations and then I also was reading about how they would use the coffee grinds to like tell futures and there's always like a mysticism around it. Like people have understood that, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
That's super cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I never really thought about cacao versus coffee and the different energies of the two. So good
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
know, and I'm gonna start to think about that more. Hopefully, I'll get a place to live soon and be able to have some of this more often. So that's good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention is where to source it from because that's such a huge piece. And I know of the personally of the coffee farm I visited in Colombia. The I'll put a link on my social media to their Instagram account, but I know all their coffee is made organically. It's not washed coffee, which I don't know if you guys have heard what washed coffee is. Do you know what washed coffee is?
Mm-mm. No.
Um, it's so terrible. So basically, what it is that they like put herbicides and pesticides and all sorts of things on the tree, but then what they do so that way it can pass like health regulations is then they take all the seeds off and they wash them. And so they don't like they actually like they wash them like in water. They take off all the berry and everything, and then there's that coffee seed. And the argument is, oh well, we washed it, so there's no herbicides and pesticides or chemicals in the bean because we washed it all off. But obviously, we all know how plants work, and they absorb all of that inside the plants, like in the individual cells in the plant. It'd be like if you sprayed herbicides all over your broccoli plant and then washed off your broccoli and thought, oh, I'm not going to ingest any herbicides. Like, that's not how it works. It goes like into the plant itself. Um, so it's actually like just a law loophole. So you don't ever want to buy washed coffee. You want to buy coffee that's actually from a farm where they don't use any herbicides and pesticides and things like that. But I found a coffee place in Colombia that does that, and their coffee is unbelievable. So I want to give you their connection to them. And then there's also Lava Love Cacao, is where you can buy cacao from really easily in California. They have a distributor in California that imports the cacao bars from Guatemala and then ships them out, so you don't have to worry about customs and things like that. And it's coming from the mines that I learned from, so everything is amazing. Like, there's no chemicals. The way that they prepare the cacao, it's actually all prepared by hand by the women in their town. And so it actually helps support local women with their jobs. Like, they're the ones who are roasting it and peeling it and grinding it. So it's very cool because then you have all their energy in there. So I just wanted to say I have resources for you so that you can
Yay.
get these. Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, very much looking forward to having you back at some point. Maybe we'll do a Dominican Republic trip and have a cacao ceremony there. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other fun thing is I've traveled around the world tasting cacao and they all taste so different. Like, I've had cacao from Bali, I've had cacao from Mexico, Guatemala, the Dominican, and they all taste super different. So if you wanted to play around with that too, with like trying cacao from a few of these different places, you can almost like, you know how you go wine tasting? You can have like cacao tasting.
super cool. Like, we'll
Oh,
definitely do that. So how do people find you? So we can put that in the recording as well.
Yeah. So I have Instagram and TikTok, cacao.wisdom. And then I also have my website, which is www.cacaowisdom.com. And I will be posting recipes about different plant medicines, about the rituals and ceremonies I've been learning around the world, about the teachings from the Mayans and the abuelas and the Brazilians, the pagan traditions, all the cool stuff that I've been learning, divine, feminine, and masculine. If you're into this type of stuff, then definitely follow along because this is what I will be sharing.
Awesome. Thank you.